Well, it's 2026 and the headlines are rolling in about how Nintendo Switch 2 is failing. It is a failure. It is going to die. It is going away. Oh my gosh, all the doom and gloom. And look, I mean, there's some evidence, some statistical things out there that are pointing to the fact that Nintendo Switch 2 did not have a fantastic holiday season. Stock prices are way down. And look, it's not a difficult narrative based on the headlines and what's being said out there to try to dive into it. And certainly, Nintendo gloomers out there, I think I'd rather call them that instead of saying, other words that aren't really accurate. I would say that Nintendo gloomers are probably having a field day. I wouldn't know. I haven't really watched the content, but I'm sure they're having a field day with it because this is exactly the sort of headlines and stuff they want to hear. The problem, of course, is that the Switch 2 isn't failing. The Switch 2 is not in a terrible place. And there's some pretty understandable explanations for why the entire video game industry has been down this past holiday, not just the Switch 2. But even specifically, obviously, we're a Nintendo channel. We could focus on the Switch 2 itself and how it's really not in as dire of a situation as headlines and people are making it out to believe. But we'll talk about that in a little bit. Obviously, I have this reputation where people think all I do is defend Nintendo. And I got to be honest, I only defend when I think the headlines are incorrect and overblown and overstated. Otherwise, I have criticized them a ton. One criticism that might be coming shortly after we get more information is there's a couple employee complaints filed legally against Nintendo and a contracting company that I'm not covering just yet, at least on a major way, because the details are very scant. But basically, they're suing over wrongful termination and dealing with some things that might be connected to old stories where Nintendo's of America, in particular's QA test team, was being treated like absolute dog trash. So I literally blasted Nintendo back when that happened, and that could be something that happens again as I wait for more details to come out. But that's not today's topic. We're not doing a combo video with news, even though I do have some news to talk about. We'll save some of that for tomorrow. What I actually want to focus on today is a story we covered yesterday that's took off in ways online that I guess I shouldn't be surprised. And before we dive into it, and I explain why I think the headlines are massively overblown and why I think Switch 2 is actually sitting just fine and probably within Nintendo's expectations, I want to first go over some stuff that we're doing at the channel here. One, we're on our road to 200,000 subscribers. So if you would like to subscribe to the channel, that'd be great. It all starts by getting to 161, and we always celebrate in a community post and sometimes in a live stream every 1,000 new subscribers we get, because I never forgot what it was like to get that first 1,000 subscribers on YouTube. And it doesn't matter how many thousands of subscribers we get to, hundreds of thousands. Hell, what if we get to 1 million one day? I never want to forget what it was like to get 1,000 subscribers. So we do celebrate every 1,000, and I will continue to do so because I do think that it's important. But setting that aside, we also are giving away 3 copies of Final Fantasy VII Remake Intergrade. There's a link to enter down in the description or pinned comment. Obviously, we're talking about the Switch 2 release later this month. So what are we talking about? Well, you see stuff like this over on Reddit. Nintendo Switch 2 is going to fail if Nintendo doesn't do something quick. And what is this based on? Well, it's based upon the headlines that came from the game business, VGC, and others. We got IGN here we'll use today saying Nintendo source blames Switch 2 holiday sales slowdown on the economic landscape and the absence of a major Western game despite the release of Metroid Prime 4 Beyond. And this supposedly comes from a senior source at Nintendo, assuming Nintendo of America, but I don't know which sector it's from exactly. And again, this came from that game business report that the U.S. Switch 2 sales over the holiday period were down 35% versus Switch 1 sales performance in 2017. And then they talk about the UK being down 16%. And then some words from a senior person at Nintendo, basically blaming exactly what the headline says. The headline saying that, hey, we think it's because there was no major Western game coming out, which I think it might be a Nintendo of America employee, but that's a whole different thing. And it goes on from there. Friend of the channel, one of my friends, even made a negative video on this. You're seeing it from Nintendo Land. The Switch 2 might be in trouble. It's based on the same topic. And then obviously you have your gloomers out there doing their stuff. I won't show their stuff, but there's more evidence to suggest things aren't going well. You see the 6-month trend here, really since, probably, right before October, September period. You can really see that things have been kind of downtrending. They bounced back a little bit, and now they've been kind of nosediving, down 26% on their stock valuation. So, okay, that doesn't mean Nintendo's not sitting incredibly well. 16.32 is still well ahead of the peak of the Wii and DS era. But again, this is one of those things where obviously there's been some market corrections. Sales have been down, and again, we don't have the official Circana data to confirm some of the numbers, but bottom line is it seems like Switch 2 had a fairly poor holiday in the United States, and the United States is the largest market. So if that market's down, if some of the markets in Europe are down, we now have some official numbers from France showing that those numbers are down, which is typically one of the stronger European countries for Nintendo. It's creating this mass panic. Now, is Switch 2 failing? Is it about to die off? Well, the reality is, no, it's not failing. It's not dying off. In fact, it's still the fastest selling console of all time. So to be the fastest selling and then call it a failure is kind of a misnomer. I think you have to consider factors that are different between now and then. First off, the entire industry is down. So the lowest it's been since like 1995 or something. So when you consider that, it being down compared to 2017, dude, everything's down compared to all the way back to 1995. So, of course, it's down compared to 2017. 2017 also had a couple things going for it. For starters, Nintendo Switch was mostly out of stock until holiday of 2017. So there was, not a ready supply of Switches to buy, just walk into the store and buy until the holiday period. And in the United States and just worldwide in general, Mario Odyssey came out in October of 2017, and Mario Odyssey, being a big 3D Mario, being the best-selling 3D Mario of all time, was a massive system mover that holiday. Nintendo this year had Kirby Air Riders and Age of Imprisonment as the only exclusive games that you had to buy a Switch 2 to play for holiday. You didn't need to buy it for ZA, you didn't need to buy it for Prime 4, but you did need to buy it to play Kirby and Age of Imprisonment, 2 spin-off games from other IPs. Not exactly system movers as much as I enjoy the game. So that's another thing, is that Nintendo didn't really have a Switch 2 system seller come out this holiday. The 2 biggest games for Switch 2 at this point are Donkey Kong Bonanza and Mario Kart World. There's other games, other great games, but again, those are the 2 that probably move the most units for Nintendo. We'll see when the updated sales figures come in at the end of the month or first week of the next month, whenever Nintendo's next financial report is. Now, why are these headlines flying out there? Well, one, obviously it not doing as well as Switch 1 in 2017 to some people is a problem. I always remind people that, because the Switch 2 was so readily available this entire time, that sales were just a bit more front loaded than usual. That 3.5 million in 4 days, that's unheard of. It being the fastest selling system of all time through the end of 2025. Again, that's unheard of. And it's because the supply has been so ready that there wasn't this big thing where you had to wait till holidays to be able to buy the system. You've been able to buy it this whole time. So that plays a huge role, I think, in diminished holiday sales, especially when you don't have a big system seller coming out at that time exclusively. Now, all of that aside, I think that we need to start being honest about the Switch 2. It's moved at least 15 million units from my estimations here in 2025. That matches the entire first full 12-month fiscal year of Switch in 6 months. What are we doing? I mean, some estimations have it up to 18 million. I don't know if it's quite that high. We'll see when the official numbers come, but I'm confident it's past 15 million. Paul Gale Networks put his sources out there stating it's past 15 million. I don't really know how in any way, shape, or form Switch 2 is failing when it outsold the entire first 12-month fiscal year of Switch in 6 months. Like, this is where we're at right now. Like, we're at this juncture of calling something a failure just because all the sales were spread more evenly out and didn't just happen all in the holiday period. I find it to be a little baffling. It's about to cross 4 million in Japan, for crying out loud. I don't really understand what the point of these narratives are. Like, we can say a fact. It is a fact. The entire video game industry is down, especially in the United States for this holiday. It is a fact that, yeah, Switch 2 probably, we don't have the official numbers yet, but most likely did not sell as well this holiday as Switch 1's first holiday. But there was a whole bunch of different factors between these two systems that obviously would favor Switch 1 selling better during the holiday period, including price. You got to throw that in as well. So there's just, a lot of factors here. And despite these factors that worked against Nintendo Switch 2, it's still the fastest selling system. It still has crossed an incredible milestone in its first fiscal year. So I'm a little confused on why we have to sit back and pretend the Switch 2 is anything other than a smash success story. I don't know what's going to sell lifetime, right? Like, that's the big thing. People keep talking about lifetime estimations. Oh, it's going to sell 60 million. Oh, it's going to sell 80 million. Oh, maybe it hits 100, but probably not. Maybe it's only going to sell 30 million. Meanwhile, it's selling faster than anything has ever sold. So I don't know how to estimate that. I don't know how to estimate something that's selling faster than anything that's ever sold until it starts to fall behind. If it starts to fall behind PS5 and PS4, starts to fall behind the pace of Switch. Right now, it's significantly ahead of the pace of Switch. I showed the chart in the VGC article yesterday about, like, it's still like, oh no, its holiday wasn't as great. Dude, it is so far ahead of Switch that it's insane, when you line up the months. So I feel like we're just in a world where people just want negative headlines to exist because they want it to exist. Obviously, we have the gloomers that obviously just, they're really against Nintendo and their pricing strategies, and they think it's all corporate greed. And look, man, Nintendo is greedy. I have never denied that. They're a for-profit company. I saw people freaking out about the price of the Joy-Con 2 colorway yesterday, and it's like, dude, it's the same price as the Joy-Con 2s were last year. It's not new. This isn't a new price point, and that price point is because China's being tariffed 47.5%. Why are we like pretending there's not economic reasons this stuff is happening? It's not all just Nintendo. And while you can, I saw someone today tell me, well, Nintendo should just eat the losses on the Joy. Dude, okay. I don't care how much money Nintendo makes. They don't need to make all of the money. I'm just a consumer. But I will say, you do know they're a for-profit company and not a charity. They don't make things to lose money. Like, could they afford to eat the loss? Sure. Did you see their stock? Their stock is down 26.25% over the last 6 months. And if you want a more drastic outlook, it's down 13.62% over the last month. And you can see the huge drop off, obviously beginning around the middle of December onwards. You can see in January, it has been very low. So what I'm trying to point out is this is a for-profit entity. Everything they make is intended to make them money. They're not just going to sit there and just eat and eat and eat all the losses because of the economic condition. They have to obviously try to make money and be significantly profitable. Their profit percentage is the highest in the industry, but they also don't have as high a revenue as, say, an Xbox or a Sony or a Tencent. Nintendo has not as much revenue, but much higher profit margins. But then when the profit margins are getting eaten into because of economic conditions, you can't just expect them to just sell everything for a loss, which is what I feel like people think Nintendo should be doing. They should be selling the Switch 2 at $350 and just have a $100 loss on the system, because right now they're selling it at cost. Nintendo should be selling the Joy-Con 2s for like $60 and just lose $30, $40 potentially, and just straight up losses per thing sold. Nintendo should be selling their video games, right? They should chop the price of their games because they don't make AAA games. Mario Kart should be $30. Like, they just want Nintendo to not make money. And I don't understand this prospect of a for-profit company makes for-profit decisions and we're supposed to be mad about it. I'm not mad that Nintendo doesn't want to lose and eat the losses on everything just because they can afford to and to be pro-consumer. Cool. They would also end up losing a shit ton of money as well and basically destroy their profit margin that keeps their company so valuable as it is. That 25 to 30% profit margin off their revenue is the thing that keeps Nintendo so stable in the industry. Now you want to take that all away. I I don't see the point of that other than just wanting things to be cheaper. We all want things to be cheaper. We know this. I wish video games only cost $1. Hey, I mean, I'd love to get the next 3D Mario game for $1, but it's just not realistic. We have to be realistic with the economic conditions going on and be realistic with the cost of manufacturing and everything that's been happening. You know, memory prices, it's actually suspected game consoles are going to go up again this year. Not because of tariffs, but because of the AI boom and what's happening with all the memory chips. So I think we have to be a bit more understanding, a bit more logical in our thinking. Switch 2 is the fastest selling system of all time. It's already outsold the entire first year of the Nintendo Switch, and it is seeing some pretty incredible sales. Nintendo upped their projections from 15 million to 19 million. Are they going to hit the 19 million? I don't know, but based on what I'm seeing out there, they've already hit the 15 million they originally projected. So Nintendo's already ahead of their own internal expectations when they launched the damn system. So in what way is this a failure? In what way is Nintendo outselling their initial predictions? How is that a failure? It's just not. We don't know where the ceiling is for Switch 2. We don't know how far it can go, how many years it's going to be, or how many years can it continue to sell 15 plus million. I don't know. We don't know because we haven't got into the generation a whole lot yet. It hasn't even been a year. Nintendo still has a bunch of big game system sellers they haven't even dropped yet. So yeah, I'm just going to sit back and say it gets a little tiring reading some of these headlines starting off 2026 just because, yeah, the holiday season wasn't great. It's fine to have your articles and talk about it, but I think talking about the facts and then trying to spin them to mean Switch 2 is a failure and no longer successful and it's in trouble, it's weird. You can't be the fastest selling console of all time, but then also be in trouble. None of that lines up. It doesn't logically make sense. Nintendo's doing a different strategy than we've seen before, and because of it, they're overshooting their own projections. So I think we just need to sit back and let it play out. The way Nintendo, to me, seems to be strategizing Switch 2, at least so far, and we'll see if I'm right on this long haul, is because they are no longer fighting for their life like they were with Switch. Remember, Wii U and 3DS was a very bad generation for Nintendo, so they fought for their life with Switch and jam-packed that first 9 months, kept the pricing very, very friendly, and tried really, really hard to convince people to buy a Switch. They're not in that position right now. Switch 2 is already off to an incredible best start in console history, and the games are selling well as well. So Nintendo is not in this position where they need to just smash a bunch of big titles into 6 to 9 months. They can now spread their games out over a longer period of time. And in doing that, create more consistent sales year over year. If you think about 2018, the next big system seller in 2018 didn't drop until December after the end of 2017. It's almost a year till we had another system seller drop on Switch. And a lot of that's because of how much they packed into 2017 that would have probably been better spread out into 2018. So yeah, I think Nintendo is just in a better place to create more consistency in their big releases over a large number of years because they're no longer fighting for their life. They're actually in a very, very good position that literally no one else has ever been in before. So I'm just going to sit back and say, I ain't worried. Next holiday season, I'm sure there'll be 1 or 2 big exclusive games that'll help boost up the holiday sales much bigger next holiday than they were this holiday. And if Nintendo gets another 1 or 2 system sellers out in the spring or summer, that's also going to boost it. I think Nintendo's just fine. I don't really think there's anything to be concerned about from the fan point, from the YouTube content creator point, from any of this, other than, yes, of course, it's easy to crap on them right now because the holiday sales were bad. Of course, they were bad for everyone, and because their stock went down. But it's all going to go back up. You guys know this, right? Like, the Switch 2 isn't like nosediving. It just came off, a couple of its best months since it came out. Besides launch month, like the next best months were like November and December. They're going to be okay. Switch 2's going to be fine. I don't feel like we need to panic over things. The panic on the internet sometimes gets to be too much. All right, guys. Thank you so much for tuning in. I am Nathaniel Rovajans from Nintendo Prime. Thank you for joining me for the single topic conversation video. We'll be back with some news tomorrow. I've already got a few banger stories to get into that I just needed more research before I wanted to put the video out. So thank you guys. I'll catch you later.